All right. So, chapter two, what does chapter two cover? What topic? Overall general topic.
Budgeting.
But
Budgeting. By a show of hands, raise your hand if you have a personal budget. Anybody have a personal budget?
I do.
Okay, keep your hands up if you stick to your budget. That's what I thought. Okay, that's okay. I'm the same way. I put my hand down way too fast. I tell you what, whenever I told my mom that I was teaching a class about budgets, this is about 6 or 7 years ago, she literally laughed out loud because I am just horrible, horrible with budgets. Okay, but if it's a business or an association that I am a part of, you better believe I know where every single penny goes because that's I don't want to fail in public. I don't mind failing privately, right? But I don't want to fail in public. So let's talk
And I
about
and
budgets.
I have a business too, so
Excellent. So let's talk about budgets. Hold on one second. I need to change my speaker.
Hi, stop.
There we go. That way it'll come up to the speakers instead of the computer. All right, here we go. So budgets. What is a budget? It's a plan. Absolutely. Plain and simple. It's a plan. When we have a budget, we basically have a plan. Okay. Now, there are some pros and cons to having a budget. What are some benefits of having a budget?
You know where your money's going?
Good. We know where our money's going. We know where we're going to be spending our money. Good. What else?
it allows us to project what we spend and what we take in, so you can have an average cost of what you can plan on spending for the following either month
Absolutely.
or term or whatever.
Yeah. So we kind of have an idea of the money that's going to come in. We have an idea of how we can spend the money that goes out. And then hopefully at the end, we'll either break even or we'll have a little bit extra, right? It would not be a good business sense if you budgeted to lose money on a regular basis, okay? So that's the benefit. What are some negative aspects or what are some cons about creating a budget?
It's time consuming.
It is absolutely time consuming. Good. I feel like sometimes a budget is the same thing as like a daily to-do list. How many of y'all do a daily to-do list? I try to do them, and some days I'm more technically, sometimes I'm like making my to-do list as I'm driving. Obviously, voice to text. But as I'm driving to work, I'm like, okay, what do I need to work on today? Because if I don't have that to-do list, then my mind is just wandering. Okay, what do I got to do? Or if someone pulls me away from something, I got to come back to it. So it is time consuming, but it is beneficial. Okay, so that is a downside to budgets that they are time consuming. What else?
It can be overwhelming
It can be overwhelming.
because you don't know what you should include as far as categories. Should it be a together category? Should it be separate kind of thing?
Yeah.
Overthinking it.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Lesson to be learned back in the day when we had checkbooks. When you got two people writing two checks from one account and not talking to each other.
Okay, so
same with credit cards.
that budget allows you to know what money is allowed to be spent. So that's good. How many of you ever heard the phrase use it or lose it?
Mhm.
Anybody ever heard that before? Okay. Juan, how have you heard that? How have you heard that phrase used?
Or like something
Leave.
I'm like, nah, I'm gonna just save these 150 for next
Vacation.
week to like have it like, saved up. And my mom's like, you're gonna end up wasting more money than you saved. And you like, cause like sometimes when I get my check, I'm like what I get like an average, right? And then I'm like, I'm gonna save 200 and I'm gonna see so I could buy something else. And my mom always tells me, if you don't use those 200 today, next week you're gonna waste like triple of that without even knowing you did.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay, cool. So in your personal budget, you might want to try to save some a little bit. Okay, good. What else? How about in a business perspective? Samantha.
In the housekeeping budget, basically like if you don't use the budget, you're gonna lose it. Because the next month you're gonna have a whole different budget.
Yeah. So sometimes one of the bad parts about budgets is it leads to unnecessary spending. Okay. It would be great to save that $200 for next week. But if let's say your budget is $10,000 in housekeeping or in the restaurant for ingredients, and you only spend $8,000, well, they're gonna say, well, hey, last
You don't
month,
need it.
last month you did it on 8,000. So that, or last year you did it on 8,000. So guess what? This year you can do it on 8,000 again, right? And so sometimes budgeting tells me I've got $10,000 to spend, so I better spend it. When in reality, it could be better to save that $2,000 and put it towards something else that maybe you can buy later on.
We
Um,
would always like allocate to the vacuums and things like that that we would need.
Yeah, so you
You
might
have
buy
extra
things that
money.
you don't need just because you have to spend it. Otherwise, if you don't spend it, if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. Okay? Now, budgeting, Tiffany made a comment about it's kind of, maybe can be a little overwhelming and you don't really know what to do. So budgeting in general is focused on forecasting. So forecasting is how we typically are going to budget. And what is forecasting? Tanya, what do you think? When you hear the word forecasting, what do you think of? Yeah, we are projecting, but what are we doing? Where are we getting the information to be able to project?
Looking
From the
at
past. Exactly. Okay, so we're projecting what's gonna happen. Is it always right? No,
No.
but it's a good plan, it's a good idea, a good ballpark. We're projecting what could happen using the information from the past. Okay, so what is some type of information that you might need to know when you're starting to forecast?
The current bills, inventory.
Yeah, inventory, but yes. So inventory, what we have right now is we're forecasting what we need in the future.
your forecast.
Good. What's that?
The forecast from the past for that specific period.
Yeah, so we might look at what happened last time in that particular period of time. So what's coming up next week on Friday?
Valentine's.
Super Bowl.
Day. Okay.
Oh, they're both Sunday.
Valentine's Day is
Hey.
happening on Friday. And in the restaurant world and the hospitality world, especially hotels, we love it when Valentine's Day is on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Right? Because then people are going to maybe check into the hotel, do a little staycation. But if it's on a Monday or Tuesday, they got to go to work the next day.
They're not gonna stay.
Right? And so when we're forecasting, we're looking at holidays, what's happening in the area. What kicks off tomorrow?
Super Bowl weekend.
Not Super Bowl. In San Antonio, what kicks off tomorrow?
Oh, the road, no.
The rodeo, yeah.
Oh,
Rodeo
rodeo.
kicks off tomorrow, just a mile away from here. Okay. That's pretty much the entire month of February. And then what happens in March?
March Madness.
March Madness towards the end,
Spring break.
spring break. Then towards the end of March in 2025, we
St.
have
Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's
Men's
Day.
Final Four.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, so Tiffany just mentioned St. Patrick's Day. Who was it? I was talking to the Mad Dogs group. So the Mad Dogs restaurant group, they own Mad Dogs,
Right down the street.
On the Bend, they own the Prost House, a lot of different restaurants in the Riverwalk area. And they were saying last year they had their best ever St. Patrick's Day weekend because St. Patrick's Day was actually on the weekend. So I don't think it's on the weekend this year. I don't know what the day of the week it is, but like they dye the river green
Mhm.
for St. Patrick's Day. But if St. Patrick's Day is not on a weekend, they'll do it the weekend before. But people really aren't really in the mood quite yet, right? So all those things, the day of the week, the time of year. We have men's Final Four coming up, the first weekend of April. So that's the NCAA tournament.
Fiesta.
The
Fiesta.
finale- I'm sorry, what's that?
Fiesta.
Fiesta happens in April. Yep. Men's Final Four is coming up in April. That one weekend. Anybody know what the economic impact in San Antonio is for that one weekend? 4 days.
Isn't it in like millions?
It is in the millions. $360 million in 4 days is the economic impact in the city of San Antonio.
Wow.
Three
Well,
hundred sixty million dollars in
don't forget
4
about
days.
don't forget about the rodeo too coming up this weekend.
Yep, we already mentioned that. So that men's Final Four we're doing that in April 2025, right?
Mhm.
The last time we had it was 2018. So can I compare when I'm budgeting? Let's say I'm budgeting for 2019. Can I use 2018 numbers for 2019?
Yeah.
No,
Too far.
because if I'm looking at if I'm in 2019, right? Let's all go back in time. I'm sitting in 20, I'm getting ready to prepare for 2019. I had the men's Final Four in 2018. Am I going to reach those same numbers without the men's Final Four in 2019?
No.
So it wouldn't make sense to set my budget like that, right? So you have to understand what's going on. It's not just as simple as let's put some numbers on paper. Now, when we are forecasting and when we are talking about our budget, we are typically going to increase or decrease by a percentage. Okay? Typically, our sales, we want them to increase. We want our expenses to decrease or stay the same. Or, we know that sometimes maybe the price of goods starts going up. So we're going to increase our expenses budget to kind of reflect that. Okay. So let's talk about increasing and decreasing by a percentage. This is number 3 and number 4 on your notes page. The first thing we want to do is multiply. We multiply that original number by whatever percentage is given. And then the same thing, we multiply in number 4, whatever that number is, whatever the percentage is that's given, we're going to multiply by that number. Okay. And then if we're increasing, that means we're going to go up, right? So if we're increasing, we're going to add that number to our original number. And that's how we increase by a percentage. If we're decreasing, we're going to take that number, we're going to subtract it from that number, that original number, okay? And that's going to give us our answer for increasing or decreasing by a percentage, okay? So let's do some examples. You can do these on the margins of your notes page, okay? If we're going to increase by 3% from 2,000, so our original number is 2,000, okay? So 2,000 times 0.03. Remember, we got to move that decimal place when it's 3%. Move that decimal place over 2.
To set up your device using a
And
screen
add a
reader,
0.
turn on narrator by pressing Win.
So what is 2,000 times 0.03? 60? Okay. So I'm going to increase by 60, which means my new budgeted or projected number is 2,060. Okay, we're going to increase by 3%. What is 100%? What is 100% as a decimal? It's 1, right? Let me show you. Move this decimal place over 2, and we have 1. Okay. What is 2,000 times 1?
2,000.
2,000, right? If I'm adding these two numbers together, what happens if I add these two numbers together? What do I get? What's 1 plus 0.03? 1.03. If I multiply 2,000 by 1.03, I automatically get 2,060. The 1 is multiplying by 2,000. The 0.3 is multiplying by 2,000, and it gives me the answer of 2,060. Okay, so if you want to do it in one step, you want to increase by a certain percentage. We take 100, we add that percentage, 2.5, And what do I get?
102.
102.5. And then move that decimal place over 2. And now if I multiply 5,000 times 1.025. Oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong line. Let me erase that. $5,000 times 1.025. I'm going to get what?
125.
125. Okay, thank you. Okay. So if we want to increase by a percentage, just add it to 100, move that decimal place over, and that's what you're going to multiply by. Okay, super easy. Do you think it works the opposite direction with subtraction?
It's a lot easier.
Alex doesn't think so, but let's. I saw you shake your head.
No, I was so focused.
All right, so let's use this as our example of decreasing by 5%, okay? Last time we added to 100, so what are we gonna do this time? We're gonna subtract
Subtract.
100. What is 100 minus 5?
95.
95. We move our decimal place over 2 spots. And so if we multiply 15,000 times 0.95, what answer do we get? The 14, 250,
25.
or 250?
25.
Check, make sure you have the right decimals. Because if you stopped at 25, it might be because you're off by a decimal. Okay, so let's do it the long way just so we see. What is 15,000 times 0.05?
750.
750. So if we subtract that, this is the answer we get. Okay. If we go back to this where we do 100 minus 0.05, we get the 0.95. Okay. So if we increase or decrease by a percentage, let's do this last one. What's 100 minus 1.5? 98.5, right? Good, excellent. 98.5. Move that decimal place over 2 spots. So 1,200 times 0.985 is equal to. Joseph, what'd you get?
1185. 1185. 1182. Hello?
11,820.
11,000 or 1,100?
11,000.
Okay, did you do 0.985?
I had 12,000.
Oh, you had 12,000. Okay, so
82.
1182. Okay, good. See, it's not difficult. We're adding and subtracting, right? Or we're just multiplying by this one factor. Okay. This is where we're planning. There's 4 steps to a budget. The first one is to plan it. The second one is to implement it, put it into action. Okay. The next one is our P and L. P and L. Or profit and loss. Okay. This profit and loss or P and L statement is basically a snapshot of our accounts without having to look at the entire full budget. Because like Tiffany said, the budget can be really big and overwhelming. So this P and L just basically comes over and gives us the highlights And at the bottom, we have the profit or loss. Okay, so the first line is always sales. First line, why is the first line, Aaron, why is the first line always sales? Why do you think?
That's how much money we made.
That's how much money we made. That's what we have to subtract everything else from in order to determine if we have a profit or if we have a loss. Okay? How many of you have ever heard that you're never ever going to use college algebra ever again in your life after you've taken college algebra? Anybody ever heard that? Okay, cool. Let me show you that you're wrong.
Well, sir, we just said we heard it. We didn't say we did.
Okay, so what is our profit or loss formula? Profit or loss equals what? Sales or revenue, good. I'm gonna use sales just because I'm running out of space. Sales minus expenses, good. Okay. In algebra, what we do on one side, we have to
You to the other.
do to the other. So if we want to get sales by itself, profit plus expenses is equal to sales. So our profit plus all of our expenses is equal to sales. Okay, so sales is always 100%. Our sides want to match each other. Our sales is always 100%, which means, let me erase this. Which means all of this also has to equal 100%. Okay, there is one question on your final exam that you will take in 13 weeks. That's going to look just like this. Okay, and we'll review as we get closer to it, don't worry. Okay, but it's going to look just like this. It's going to be a question, something along the lines of, you're projected to have $3 million in sales. What is your projected or budgeted labor costs? Now, I don't have my labor costs. Okay, but what do I know? Because I just learned this. This all equals 100%. So what's 25 plus 15? 40 plus 21? 61 plus 11?
72%.
72. I subtract 72. And what do I have left over?
28.
Thank you, 28. That means my labor cost is 28%. But my question is asking, what is my dollar amount in labor budget? How do you figure that out? Not times 100. Good guess, though. What tool do you think we might use?
Would it not be just what's 28% of the
Tanya?
$3 million?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what is 28%, what dollar amount is 28% of 3 million. And Tanya just suggested we use our triangle. Because we have cost, percent, and sales, right? Here's our sales. Here's our percentage. In this case, we're asking labor cost. We're not asking food cost, we're asking labor cost. The cost is the same thing, right? One cost is just ingredients to make food. One cost is to pay our labor. One cost is to pay whatever, right? So this cost is what we're looking for. So if we cover that up, what is our formula? Sales times the percentage. So in this case, 3 million times 0.28 is going to equal
340,000.
$340,000.
840.
840. I was going to say, I knew the 40 was right. $840,000 is what I have for budget for labor for the whole period. Maybe this is a year. Okay, that's how I figure out my budget. It's going to give you an answer that has sales. It's going to give you all these other percentages groups. It's going to leave out this one, which, but you know now that all that equals 100%. Okay, so I want you to try this second one over here. On your own. If you're online, you can type your answer in the chat. What is the dollar amount of our profit? If you are here in class, you can compare your answers to your neighbor to see if they match. And then we will go over the answer. I want you to try, see if you can figure that out. Right, so in the chat, I see a lot of people giving me the percentage, but I'm asking for the dollar amount. So if you can also type in, you have the right percentages, but I'm looking for what is my dollar amount in projected profit. I'm just gonna do one more lap. Yep. You got it? Yeah, perfect.
Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit lost.
Yeah, okay, what can I help you with?
Um, I'm like, for some reason, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm at anymore.
Okay, so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to figure out what is our dollar amount in profit. So if we take all of this information, this all equals up to 100% if we add it all together, okay? So if we add 28 and 10, that is 38 plus 2, sorry, 32, 60
Yeah.
plus, no, 70.
Yeah.
70 plus 20 is 90. So if this is all 90, then that means our profit is 10%. And so what is 10% of $100,000?
$10,000.
$10,000. We're gonna knock off that 1 0 and we've got $10,000. Okay. We could also use our triangle. So if I know this is 10%, I can do my triangle of cost. I'm looking for that. So my sales of 100,000 times 0.10, which is my 10%. And that's going to give me $10,000. Okay. Would that help? All right. So when we're budgeting our expenses, it's helpful if we actually can break down not only just the major categories like we see on our profit and loss statement, but if we can break it down by the subcategories within. So for example, our food cost last year was $280,000, which represents 35% of our food sales. Okay. But of that 35%, this is how it all comes together. That 35%. So 11.1% is our meat. That's our biggest. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Protein's the most expensive, right? So if our bakery items, no offense to my bakers in here, but if my bakery items were more than my meat, I might be probably spending a little bit too much money on my baked goods. Or I might be purchasing them too often and too much that they go bad and I can't sell them fast enough and then I have to throw them away. Okay. So we also always want to look and see what we're going to do. So let's say, let me use a different color because yellow is not that great. Let's say that our percentage this year is 35%. Is that high or low? That's pretty high, right? We want to do about a 30 to 33% food cost. Okay. But we don't want to go too drastic because if we set our goals too high, I want to reduce by 5%. That's a pretty big reduction in one year to the next. So let's maybe just make it, I don't know, 2%. Okay. So if I want to decrease by 2%, does this, give me a thumbs up if you think yes, thumbs down for no. Does this 2% have to come from one category?
No.
No, we can spread it out, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, let's say maybe we get to 10.9. That's 2. That's 0.2. Okay. Maybe we get to, this is horrible. Hold on. Let me take away the, let's use pen instead. Okay. Let's make it 10.6. Okay. That's going to give us 0.5, a reduction. Maybe we go to 9. Y'all tell me.
7.
7. Okay. So now we're down to 0.5. 0.2, we're at 0.7. We're trying to get to 2. Okay. Can we really decrease our bakery that much more? 0.6, that's already pretty low, right? Maybe we don't want to touch that one. Groceries, maybe what? So like 3.1. So that's another 0.2. Now we're at 0.9. Okay, so you see how this process goes? And then now I can take this number, 10.6, and multiply it by my sales. And then that's going to give me what my new budget for meat is going to be. Okay. And that 9.7 is going to give me what my new budget for seafood is. Okay. So it doesn't have, this 2% doesn't necessarily have to come from one specific category. You can break it up however you feel like you need to. Okay. This is why budgets take a long time. Because you first have to go back and figure out what you did last time. Okay. What worked, what maybe didn't work. What are we going to change this time? Then plan for the future. Okay. So let's do 3 more examples and then we will, let's see, what time is it? Okay, we're good. So sales is 25,000. Now we're going to use our triangle here. So I would recommend that you draw your triangle. Excuse me. We are looking for our food costs. Okay. So if my sales are budgeted to be $25,000 and I'm aiming for a 32% food cost, cover up sales or costs, cover up costs. And what do I have left over? Sales times
Percent.
the percentage of 0.25. Okay, and that equals 8,000. Sounds about right to me. So $8,000 is my food cost, is my budget. Okay. When I worked up in Maine for the summertime, my budget was typically about well, depending on the summer, but it usually was anywhere between $15,000 to $19,000 to feed 60 people a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 10 weeks. Okay. So I knew that what my overall budget was. Now, when I
Professor,
went for the beginning of the summer, I had nothing. My pantry was empty. So my first order was pretty hefty. I had to replenish a lot of the stuff, right? But if I buy 4 gallons of olive oil, I'm going to stretch that out over the course of maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Probably not using a gallon of olive oil a week. That'd be crazy. Okay. I'm going to stretch that out. I'm going to stretch out 4 gallons of ranch dressing for the whole summer, pretty much. Right. And so I know what my overall budget is, and that helps me figure out as I start spending money how much I have left over. Okay. So now we can also project what our sales needs to be. Do you have a question? Sorry.
yes, sir. Where'd you get the 0.25 at?
I'm so sorry. It should be 0.32.
All good.
I was gonna say.
What's that? That threw me off from it.
Stupid.
I'm like, why did you guys stop me?
I tried, but you kept going.
Yeah, that should be 0.32. I don't know why I was thinking 25%. Okay. So what is 0.32? Soraya, thank you for giving me the correct answer of 0.25.
I need my.
8,000.
It's 8,000.
Oh, the answer is 8,000?
Uh-huh.
Oh, so you gave me the correct answer.
It just didn't.
You
register
used the
you
correct information. I put the wrong information. I gotcha. Okay. So it is 8,000. Cool. I was gonna say that sounds right. This is the third time I've taught this class this week. All right.
I was just checking.
That's good. No, that's good. I appreciate it.
I thought it
All
was
right. So if we look
Chinese
at
arithmetic.
sales, we can not only project what our food cost budget is, but we can also project what our sales needs to be in order to cover the cost that we have. Okay. So if I am looking at this, okay, I'm gonna use my triangle again. I'm gonna cover up the sales. That's what I'm looking for. And now I have cost divided by the percentage of 0.29. So when I divide that by a percentage, the resulting number, the answer is going to be higher. Amy, what did you get for this answer? 200. 106. Okay. Excellent. Oh, sorry. 206. You could round up to 207, but we'll keep it at 206. It's fine. Just $1. It's not going to make a huge difference. Okay. 11,206. So that's my new sales goal. That's what my objective is, to get to that. Do I have any control over my sales?
Yes and no.
Somewhat. Yeah. Yes and no. I can train my staff how to suggestively sell. I can train my staff how to upsell. How many of you have ever been upsold, or like when you roll up to a drive-through and they're like, would you like to try our whatever? That's suggestive selling. Okay. Or you walk up to a table. Hey, have you tried our new crispy mozzarella sticks? Right? Or have you tried our new ooey gooey mozzarella sticks? Versus, hey, do you want to try our mozzarella sticks? Okay. It takes a little bit of finesse in how to upsell and how to suggestively sell. So maybe training our staff can help us increase our sales by doing that. I had this story. I was in Denver with my friend, and we went to this little brew pub, and the server, she sold us an appetizer, and I can't remember what it came with. I think it's supposed to come with marinara sauce, but she asked if we wanted gravy. Okay. So I think it was like fried mushrooms. something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. But I just remember like she totally upsold us. I didn't realize she did. But then when she took our orders for our entrees and she's like, "Do you want ranch with your fries?" And I was like, "You know what? That's crazy." I was like, "You're like totally just like upselling us like crazy." And she's like, "No, ranch isn't an upsell. Like I just get tired of walking back and forth, people asking me. So I just learned to ask them up front." She's like, "But I totally upsold you on the gravy." And I was like, "Man, you were smooth. I had no idea." So yeah, sometimes that it takes a little bit of finesse, but every time we upsell, do you want to add chicken to your fettuccine alfredo? You want to add shrimp, right? That then adds money, then increases our sales. So yeah, so in a way we have some control over what our sales are, but not always. All right, this problem, we're gonna bring all of our concepts together. This is a two-step process. So our first step, we first have to calculate
Babe,
the budget. Okay, we first have to calculate the budget, and then we have to apply the food cost percentage. Oops. So first we have to calculate what that new number is, and then we have to figure out what our percentage is. Okay, so let's do this two-step process together. First, I want to increase my food cost by 2.5%. Okay. Last period, it was 43,250. So I'm going to take 43,250. I'm going to multiply it by what?
2.5.
1.025. Remember, we've got 100 plus the 2.5. We get 102.5. Move that decimal place over to. We got 1.025. And that answer is going to be
so always add the food cost increase 100%, correct? Is that what you're saying?
anytime we are increasing by anything, we have to take the original number.
Okay.
We're gonna find the increase, so 2.5% of the original number and add it back.
Okay.
If we multiply it by the 1.025, we're basically doing that in one step.
Okay. So always add 100% because it's all that's all 100%, correct? That's what you're saying.
If you are increasing, if you're decreasing, you're gonna have to subtract.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So 43,250 times 1.025 gives me $44,331.25. Do we all agree?
Yes.
Okay, so that's our new budgeted number. My new budgeted sales or cost is gonna be 44,000. How do I find out what my sales are? Cost, percent, sales. Cover up sales. And now this one, number 2, my food cost is 30%. So I divide by my 0.30. And we get 147,770.83.
So we gotta.
That is my new projected sales number. Okay. So at the top of my list for my budget, I'm shooting for $147,000. Sorry, $147,770.83. Okay. We've planned our budget. Now we've put it into practice. We've implemented it. We've purchased the food. We brought all the sales in. We looked at all of our receipts. We added them all up. And now it's time to last 2 steps, assess the results and take corrective action. Those are the last 2 steps in a budgeting process. Okay. we want to assess the results, and then we want to take corrective action.
So you're talking about, okay, 4-step of budgeting. So it's plan, implement, profit and loss, and then we're doing the assess. That's a 5-step.
No. First step is plan, second step is implement, third
Okay.
step is
Profit and
assess.
loss.
Nope, we're not doing profit and loss. Well,
Okay.
profit and loss is a little bit in the assessing part we're gonna talk about right now.
Okay.
So assessing the results of what our budget was, and then we're gonna take corrective action as the fourth step.
Got it. Corrective action.
So if we take a look here, remember we talked about last class about the parentheses and red numbers, right? I think I misspoke. So I don't want you to think about I don't want you to think about it always being a negative number. It just means it's an unfavorable number. Okay? So it's unfavorable in the sense that we did not reach our budget, okay? Or maybe we went over our budget. So it's not always necessarily a negative number, it's just an unfavorable number. And I'll show you that in just a second, okay? So if we look here, let's do assessing our results. My food, I budgeted for 850,000. Okay? My actual was 925,000. So is that more or less?
More.
I brought in more, right? I brought in $75,000 more. So let's do this. Food, beverage, and then we want to do sales and expenses. Okay? So my food, my sales were higher than my budget, right? I brought in more money in sales than I thought I was going to. For our beverages, my budget was 482,000. I only brought in 456,000. So that means I came in
Negative.
under budget. I did not get in, I came in under budget on my sales. I didn't sell as much. Okay. Now, total overall, when you take into consideration that we went way over in sales in food, overall it came out in a positive number. But this is the benefit of breaking it up between food and beverage, because if I didn't break it up between food and beverage, I might think, oh my gosh, I've got $49,000 extra. Not realizing that $25,000 or $26,000 less than the budget of the beverages that I thought I was going to bring in. Okay. So now let's take a look at the next one, the cost. So my cost, I projected $288,000 in cost in expenses in order to sell $850,000. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I actually spent $315,000. Okay, which means I spent more.
Too.
And that's where I'm telling you, this is $26,000 is actually a positive number. Meaning, remember, we always do actual minus the budgeted for the variance. So if we do this actual minus the budgeted, it gives us a positive $26,500. But on the budget, it's in parentheses and red because it's unfavorable. It's not a negative number, it's unfavorable, okay? That means I went over on my sales or on my food for my expenses, okay? Now let's take a look at beverages. I thought I was gonna spend 135,000, but I actually spent 142,000. So did I go above or below on my budget for beverages? I went above. I went over. Okay. Which one of these two, the food or beverage, is a bad situation?
I think beverage.
Beverage.
Why?
Cause you,
You're always gonna sell
your
food.
sales went down, but you have more expenses.
Well, it's not because we're always gonna sell food, it's because our sales are down
And your expenses went
and our
up.
expenses are over,
It cost you more to.
right? We did not bring in nearly as much money in beverages, but we spent more money than we thought we were going to, okay? This one is okay. If you have a manager that's like, whoa, 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 hold on. You spent $26,000 more than you thought you were going to? That's crazy. You blew your budget. Hold on, pump the brakes, boss. I know what I'm doing. I went to Mr. Uminski's cost control class. Yes, I spent $26,000 more. But I also brought in $75,000 more. Right? So I have to, in order to bring in $75,000 more worth of food and sales, I have to spend more money.
You still net it.
There's no way that I could potentially sell this amount of food and only stay within this food budget. Okay? I'm gonna have to spend a little bit more money in order to make more money. Okay? So if we look at this, this is 21% over the budget. Sorry, 22%. Let me check my math real quick. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I lost my train of thought. I don't remember where I was going. Never mind. Scratch that. Okay. As long as we talked about it last class, as long as my percentages are in line, right? If I exceed my sales by 20% and my expenses are only exceeded by 5%, I'm still within that margin, right? Beverages. I'm going to give you a perfect example as to why this might be the case. Okay. When I was a server at TGI Fridays, my server trainer literally told me that if I think the people at my table are cool, which I don't even know what that means, okay? I was 19 years old, whatever. If I thought the people at my table were cool, then I shouldn't charge them for their beverages because they're gonna add that $2 to my tip. How many times do you think I got an extra $2 on my tip?
Not much.
Very rarely, if ever, okay? So what happens is I'm giving away beverages, meaning I'm not selling them. So the cost is going up, but I'm not bringing in sales, which means my sales are going down. Okay. I remember one day, Kristen, my manager, she's like, hey, David, I noticed table 42's got 4 T's, but I don't see them in the computer. Make sure you put them on the check before you drop the check. What is that telling me as an employee? What message is that sending to me?
Watching you.
She's watching me. She's paying attention. Okay. And so she's probably making a note. Okay, I told David at 7:45, 6:40, 7:45 that he should put those 4 T's on there. I'm gonna go back and check the report at the end of the night. And if table 42 doesn't have 4 T's on it at 7:45, David and I are gonna have a conversation. Okay. And we had that conversation. And she said, David, this is one, it's stealing. Okay, because you're giving product away that people are not paying for. That's stealing. Number 2, she re-educated me and she said, how do people tip on a table, on a check? Usually by what? By percentage, right? So she's like, David, those T's are $2. That table of 4, you add $8, and I average 20%, so that's an extra $1.60 per table. I have 10 tables in a night. That's an extra $16 in my pocket. Times 30 days out of the month, or times 360 days out of the year. The moment she explained it to me that way, you better believe I was charging everybody their drinks, right? Because I want to drive that check price up so that they tip me on a percentage, and then I'm gonna, oh, you know what? I'm gonna sell you dessert too. Oh my gosh. So this has happened a couple years ago. This is the last story I'll tell you, and then we'll move on. But Couple years ago, we were at a restaurant, Whiskey Cake over at La Cantera, Shops at La Cantera. Really good, right? So full, but I couldn't eat dessert. And the server's like, well, how about I cut it in half and you eat half here and I'll box the other half for you to go.
That's,
I was like, that is brilliant. Why didn't I ever think about that? How many more desserts could I have sold? Because I don't want to box up a dessert after the fact. But if I'm already back there, yeah, let me just plate it for you half done. And then I'm gonna box it up the other half and you take it home. You each eat a couple of bites if you're not stuffed, and then you go home and you eat the other ones like 20 minutes later because you're hungry again, right? But I was like, those types of techniques will just help you raise your check average, which helps you bring your sales up. But that example though with the beverages is absolutely 100%, I think, what could be the reason behind this. And you as a boss, you as a manager, have to take these numbers and try to figure out what these numbers mean. You have to think critically. Why could my cost be going outrageous for my beverages, but my sales are not? Okay. I had a student who was working at Six Flags. I was there for a private event and in the evenings, and she was working the lemonade stand. At the time, they were only accepting cash. I didn't have any cash. So she's like, that's okay, Mr. Minsky, you can have this lemonade. And I was like, did I teach you nothing? Cost control? I mean, thank you. I will enjoy this, but don't give it to free to other people. So we have to be able to keep our costs under control. Any questions, comments, or concerns about chapter 2?
Oh,
Yeah.
question. You were trying to decrease to 2% earlier, but you were adding them up. Basically, what I'm asking, were you taking 2% from each category, or were you sharing that 2%?
We were sharing that 2% between all of these categories. So we may decrease one by like 0.5% or one by a whole percent, but at the end of the day, the total result would be 2%
Okay,
reduction. Okay?
thank you.
Yes, chef. Sure. All right, we're gonna take a few minutes break. We have a quiz that's gonna open at 8 o'clock, at exactly 8 o'clock. So if you want to take a few moments and watch the videos for chapter 3 and review, you can take notes and you can use your notes on the quiz if you have notes. If you don't have notes, then you can't use your notes. All right. So we have 13 minutes till that quiz opens at 8 o'clock. It'll open automatically. So feel free to take the next 13 minutes to re-watch your chapter 3 videos, the chapter lesson 1, 2, and 3. Okay. I'm going to stop this recording and we'll start a new one when it comes to chapter 3.